You're gonna get one of these, and one of these, and one of these. So I just got done crying over like sad TikTok videos about cats. I think filming this will cheer me up though. Also, my house is flooded again. It's very minor. It's literally just the bathroom into like my closet. I always make jokes about how all these floods happen to me, but if I'm being honest with you, this one was entirely my own fault. I am a very problematic person, but I don't want to talk about that. Hey guys, it's Nicole. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. I talk about books and music, mostly Taylor Swift. Today I wanted to give you guys the rundown on what it's really like being a music industry major. I graduated in August of last year, and I now hold a Bachelor of Science in music industry. I know some of you guys are around college or high school age and maybe are considering what you either want to switch your major to or what you want to major in once you get to college. So I hope this is just really helpful for those of you who are looking into that. So I wanted to let you guys in on the things that were surprising to me about majoring in this field of study that no one really told me about on my shadow day. But to be fair, when I started college, the degree was shifting over from music business to music industry, which sounds like the same thing, but music business was a Bachelor of Music while music industry is a Bachelor of Science. So there were some differences that I think came to be due to this industry's ever-changing new demands. Some things might have been changed in the curriculum to give the students a more competitive edge, but then everything just kind of hit the fan during COVID, so who knows if those changes really served their purpose. Number one, built-in friends. So my school was a heavy agricultural and animal sciences school. The majority of the people that you meet there are animal science majors. When I first started, I believe there were like 20 music industry students. We were the smallest major in the music building, with music education being number 1 and music performance being number 2. General music, I believe, was number 3, and then we were last. Now there are a ton more. I think music industry is like the second largest degree in the music building, but even though we were growing during my time at college, all the way up to my senior year, if I found another music industry student in a general education class I was taking, like English or history, instant friendship, and that was really beneficial as a freshman who knows nobody, or even just later in my college experience, just wanting to connect with more people in my major. It was very exciting to run into somebody who has the same major as you, and you immediately exchange phone numbers, and it's never like an awkward thing. We both would just kind of nerd out. Number 2, you're gonna get one of these, and one of these, and one of these. The amount of woodworking and, how you say, pretend electricianing was not something I was expecting. I think this is something that applies to all 4-year universities, but the amount of diversity within my courses was unexpected. I took a stage tech class because some people do go into this degree wanting to do something related to musical theater, and I think this is kind of where that comes in. It was a required class. However, I can't help but kind of look at it like those people probably should be majoring in musical theater. This class consisted of me crying in a wood shop. I almost killed somebody in this class. A saw misfired after I was instructed by a stagehand while the professor was gone that this was the correct type of saw for the song that I was doing, but it in fact was not. The wood flew out and launched across the room. The most unsettling part of all of that was that we were in such a rush that we all just kind of moved on and pretended like nothing happened because we had only 3 days to build this toolbox when a large percentage of us had never built anything before. I also built this table while in that class, and this was actually not that bad because it was our final project and we had like 2 months to do it. I'm actually very proud of this thing. I made it for my mom's Christmas present since she loves to sew. I even made this needle all by myself, and it was required to have either a drawer or an opening type aspect of it. That's where this comes in, so you can kind of store stuff in it. But yeah, we had like 2 months to do this, and also the previous toolbox experience under our belt. Me with the 2 things I got out of my music industry degree. But this toolbox really did make me want to drop out, and like for what? I'm a music major. I also built this lamp that you see pictured in my stage lighting class. To be fair, I guess a girl who did major in music industry ended up going to work at a theater company doing lighting for them, but it was a bit frustrating for someone like me who was really only interested in music marketing. This was luckily a group project. My partner did all the wiring, and I am the daughter of an electrician, not my partner. Meanwhile, I stopped by my gutted apartment at 2 in the morning, glue gun in hand, to to create this monstrous lampshade in a unit that was no longer on my lease. If you're gonna get hot glue all over your apartment, it might as well be the one that you're not responsible for. For legal reasons, there was hot glue all over the floor of that apartment already before I even got there. Okay, maintenance is messy. They left their clothes all over the floor. That apartment was held together with hot glue long before I ever set foot in it. When I had to write my final paper over my internship experience and what classes prepared me for it and what didn't, I definitely included the sarcastic observation that I did not have an opportunity to utilize my table building skills this time around, but I remain optimistic that an opportunity will present itself in the future. There were also a bunch of other random classes I had to take in order to transform into a well-rounded student, which I think is just code for we want to sell you twice as many classes, but there aren't enough relevant to your degree for you to take. So here's cheese tasting and beer brewing. Like, ma'am, I am lactose intolerant and under 21. Yes, I had to take a French food class, a beer brewing class. I had to sit in a courtroom and get whacked with a belt by a felon. Sorry, not a felon, a misdemeaning man, all in the name of learning business law, which is a class that I actually really enjoyed. Now I write newsletters and schedule Instagram posts for companies. So yeah, this is a very all over the place degree. 3, you're probably not going to change your major. This is a huge positive. It's kind of the pro to the last point that I talked about. Because the classes are so diverse and you're constantly trying new things, even the relevant classes really challenge you to try out things that you wouldn't have thought you wanted to do. For example, while learning how to calculate royalties and take care of different financial aspects that a record label does, I learned that I definitely do not want to do that with the rest of my life. But because there are like 50 other different careers I could have with this degree, I didn't have to switch my major after learning that that is not what I want to do with my life. You just move on to your marketing class and find that that's something you like, or you move on to your business law class and find that you want to be a music attorney, or you take a class that makes you realize you want to do A&R or artist management. I think I knew maybe 4 people total in my entire 4 years who ended up changing their major. Number 4, sometimes you get looked down upon by other music majors. Like, aren't we all supposed to be in this together? This wasn't necessarily my personal experience because I mostly interacted with people who were music industry majors or who just had nothing to do with music at all. My best friend and roommate for 2 years was an animal sciences major. I think this boils down to sometimes the performance and education major is kind of having this preconceived idea of us way before ever meeting us. One of my friends also majoring in music industry was talking to somebody in the music building when she'd just transferred here, and they immediately changed their tune when she specified that she was of the industry degree. Based on what I've heard, they thought we were all lazy because we weren't in as many ensembles or private lessons with our instruments. Like, do you want to take econ for me? Do you want to take my exam over tort law? No, in all honesty, I don't think one degree really necessarily requires a more hardworking student than the other. In my opinion, if you're getting a bachelor's at all, buckle up. Education and performance definitely requires more of a long-term time commitment. You're in a lot of rehearsals, you're doing a lot of 12-hour school days. Some of the classes that require the majority of your time end up only being worth 1 credit hour, while your 3-hour classes end up only taking like 2 hours of time a week. This also applies to music industry too, though, because the first 2 years, most of what I did was choir and voice lessons, and I'm kind of sad that's the curriculum because I ended up not having enough time to kind of get my foot in the door with internships in this business when this is such a networking and experience heavy field. And it's even worse when you're not a vocalist like me, but an instrumentalist, because band goes hard. My second semester freshman year, I had bronchitis for 2 months because I just wasn't sleeping. I was just in choir rehearsals constantly and weird music classes that were happening on weekends like Saturdays and Sundays, as well as all of my classes happening Monday through Friday. I ended up having 10 weeks straight without a single weekend off or even like 1 Saturday or 1 Sunday. I passed out during a choir concert because I took so much Robitussin just to get through it that my body went numb and my vision was just snatched from me on stage, and like, for what? None of that is what my employers are looking for at all. Those weekends, honestly, I think should have been spent at an internship, and I love choir and I really miss it, but it's not the competitive edge on my resume at all. I don't know, but at the same time, I do understand how they want music industry professionals to also have a background in music. The whole concept of music executives who have absolutely nothing to do with the creation of music or art is kind of frustrating when they're people who are running things and they have no emotional stake in it or any understanding of what it takes to create music. So I do see it from that point of view as well. Also, because we were in the same voice studios as education and performance majors, the imposter syndrome is real. It's hard not to compare yourself to people who are striving to be performers full-time. When we did group lessons, those people were so good and they had so much repertoire memorized for their juries while our requirements were a lot lower. And then you go and perform in front of these students and they give you feedback. It's nerve-wracking, but luckily they were all really nice to me, and when I performed my originals and did stuff in a more contemporary style, the other students I was with at least seemed to appreciate that as well. We pay all this money to be well-rounded anyways. 5. Sometimes you get looked down upon by everyone. I remember such a specific time when I was in the student union getting lunch, and this girl struck up a conversation with me. I think she was some kind of science major, and I told her I was music industry, and she said some shit about how I feel like those majors don't have to worry about real problems. Like, if I was just regular business, she would not have been saying this to me. Like, I think her classes had something to do with agriculture and getting food to people, and yeah, that is a very important thing, but art is also important. Art isn't every single thing we do. Someone designed this webpage you're watching this video on right now, or in her case, who designs the packaging for the food she's going to be selling, who designs the outside of the semi-truck that's going to be transporting the food, who creates the advertisements for it, who writes the music that then goes in those advertisements. But yeah, we end up getting lumped in with like the other music majors when it's like, ma'am, I'm trying to go into marketing, and if it was general marketing, you would not be saying this to me. A toxic trait we definitely had though is that I really heard other music industry majors getting salty about our reputation in the music building, I guess, and saying things like, well, we're the music major that's going to be making money because we're on the business side of things, and that's not cute. It also was frustrating when people, particularly boomers, cannot compute what a music industry is. Like, they think you either are a struggling performer or a music teacher. The amount of times I've been asked, so where are you going to teach, by people who should 100% know better. Did you mean who am I going to manage? 6. Treat your degree plan like a Bible so you don't get tricked into taking unnecessary classes. Nobody knows what's going on. The music building is a place of chaos, and this was also a new degree that no professors really knew about. That posed a lot of stress for me. There was a required meeting for all music majors one day, and all the faculty suddenly decided that we had to take all these extra semesters of private lessons and ensembles, and a lot of older students got very stressed out by this because they obviously were not enrolled in those new required things and had not been, and suddenly they're trying to push us into taking more, which costs money, by the way. So when that new handbook came out, we were all running around like chickens with our heads cut off. I went to my advisor crying, and she basically said, like, professors can't alter your curriculum. Like, this new random handbook is not official, and also your curriculum stays the same as it was the year you started, even if it does change for incoming freshmen, which it did. So it's like, no one explained this to me. Sometimes professors really just don't know what's going on, and if you also don't know what's going on, please talk to your advisor. It really helps to have a written out list of questions prepared for your advising appointments. Also, another mistake I made was taking private piano lessons instead of the piano class. Because I came from a very strong piano background, they wanted me to take private piano lessons, which comes with a whole jury separate from your primary instruments. Mine was voice. My mom was also pushing me into it to not lose my skill, so I took 2 semesters of private piano lessons, and then I learned that without taking the piano class that everybody else was taking, instead I had to take a proficiency test that was like 8 parts long and take several semesters to pass. So I tried to just like train myself for that since I was done with private lessons and my professor never touched on it in there. I sure was spending a lot of my free time in her studio classes on Sundays though, and I ended up only passing a couple of parts when I tried to just train myself and get it done quickly. And I was like, I cannot be dying over this every single semester. Like, I need to move on. It was such a hard test, you guys. I gave it one good solid attempt. I had a panic attack on a bus. I studied for this exam way more than any of my other finals, and it was so silly. Like, for what? I could have just taken the piano class. So after that one good attempt, I ended up just taking the piano class anyways, which cost more money. And I should have done that from the start, but nobody told me that was the only way to meet the requirements, and just taking a private piano lesson doesn't actually count unless you pass that stupid freaking 8-part, 5-semester long exam. What's wild to me is that the piano class was the easiest thing ever, but for some reason the alternative was the hardest piano exam I had ever taken. The whole degree was just giving unfinished, like not thought through completely. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, someone someone there was not making the connections they should have been making. Like, here are the two things you can do, either something that's incredibly easy or the hardest thing you have ever done. It's giving unfinished. You need to read your degree plan front and back, make several copies, pin it up somewhere where you can see it every day, memorize it so you don't get screwed over. Okay, now I'm going to talk about any regrets that I have. I do not regret majoring in what I did. I loved it so much, and if I'd have tried for something more practical, I would have dropped out or changed majors because I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and that would have just lost me money anyways. I really just love how versatile this degree is and how I could go into general business if I needed to, or if the only opportunities in business at the time have nothing to do with music. For instance, during a pandemic when live music is suffering, I almost majored in performance actually, but if I would have done that, I would not be able to do anything different with that at a time like this. I do work a part-time digital marketing job right now that has nothing to do with music. However, I do wish I would have minored in something. That's one of my regrets, but that costs a lot of money and also sometimes an extra semester. So even when I decided I wanted to minor in marketing, I couldn't. I think that would look so good on my resume now though. I might get some certifications in different social media platforms, but those also cost money. My curriculum didn't have anything super focused on digital marketing, so it was a downside that there wasn't anything super specific in digital marketing, but it is nice to know I can go that route and I do have like the general knowledge. I took a basic marketing course that was required for my degree, but yeah, I didn't know I even wanted to do that until like my 3rd or 4th year. So if that ended up not being even an opportunity with this degree, I would have been really sad. I wasted 3 years on a degree that did nothing for me. I just need more specific knowledge in marketing now, I guess. This degree is really like the Swiss Army knife of music degrees. I now have very strong foundations in really every aspect of the music industry, and if I want to develop something specific like music marketing, I'm just going to have to rely on work experience, maybe some more unpaid internships and certifications, things like that. That is my plan going forward. I also kind of regret striving so hard for straight A's. Maybe not because I felt very accomplished, but the jury's still out on whether or not that's something that actually looks good on my resume. I think I need to start asking the places I apply for, like, hey, what is it about my resume that made you want to interview me and give me a chance? Also, now that I'm actively on Indeed.com all the time and looking for opportunities, I wish I would have looked into just how many remote, part-time jobs and internships are out there, because some of them would have been so doable my last 2 years of college when I wasn't doing choir and voice lessons every waking minute, and that would have boosted my resume. But I'm trying to be gentle with myself because these remote opportunities might have only come around with COVID, but there's no way to know because I wasn't looking 2 years ago. Because I am from Oklahoma, most every opportunity I'm going to be taking is probably going to have to be remote. So until I move, your girl's going to be working from home. Let me know down below what you majored in or are thinking of majoring in. I'd love to hear your thought process on how you chose. My advice is just to go with your gut because changing a major is so expensive and it's pretty normalized, but I think that's because it means you have to pay way more money. There's definitely an agenda they're pushing. Just start paying for classes now and figure it out later. Like, sure, you shouldn't be ashamed for changing your mind, but also if you're gonna do college, you need to just get your degree and get out with as little debt as possible. If there are any doubts or you're being pushed into doing something you don't want to do, it's not worth it. Just wait. They'll always be ready to take your money. College is not going anywhere anytime soon. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Let me know if you have any other questions down below about any other experiences I didn't touch on, or you can DM me. If you want to follow me on my Instagram, it is right here, and if you want to follow me on my TikTok, that is right here. I will see you all next week for another video, and I hope you have an amazing day. Bye, guys.